Welcome back to the Hobby Shop. And before we get on to our favorites in sci-fi, movies, TV shows, and video games, real quick, we want to give a plug to the place we record this to. So I'm going to throw it to Aaron since we don't have Rob this time. So
for all of your gaming needs, you should come check out Heart of the Cards in Kerrville, Texas. They have everything you need for Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer, D&D, board games, card games, you name it, they got it. Come down and talk to Miguel and tell him the Hobby Shop sings you.
Alright. Well, our favorite sci-fi. Well, like, when I'm in full commercial mode. We should have just got you to do it from the start. Rob just sounded more natural. Okay, anyway. So, our favorites in sci-fi. I mentioned that I'm not that big into sci-fi. Like, I can't recall, like, all the different sci-fi movies I've seen. A lot of the sci-fi movies I've seen range into different categories. Like, well, my favorite, I guess what you can say is a science fiction movie, but it depends on your category. It depends on how you categorize it. I've heard people tell me this is not a sci-fi movie, this is a horror movie, which confused me. And that's Alien. How is Alien not a sci-fi movie?
Well, it's a sci-fi and a horror movie.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of both.
Yeah, James Rolfe described it as a slasher movie in space. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can't consider that a sci-fi. You're dealing with alien spaceships.
It's very much like it came from beyond space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of, where there's a crew, like you have this crew on a ship and an alien sneaks on board and kills them one by one. I think that's the movie. Could be there's tons of sci-fi monster flicks from the 50s. So, but I believe it's the monster from beyond space, or it came from outer space, or something like that. I actually will have to go back and verify that one. The Alien is kind of one of my go-to movies for sci-fi. Another one I always throw in there is Terminator 2. I'm more of a fan of Judgment Day than I am the first Terminator movie, and I feel like this one's more science fictionish than I just need a new word. This one is more, for me, it's a little more sci-fi-ish than the first one. I might just have to go back and watch the first one because I haven't seen it in years. Judgment Day I just saw recently, so it's still fresh in my mind. So yeah, my movies tend to be like a sci-fi horror. I guess Judgment Day's more action.
Yeah, it's more like sci-fi action.
But
yeah,
the first Terminator was more of a horror movie when it came out.
Yeah, I remember having nightmares over the T-100 or whatever it was called.
T-1000.
No. I had nightmares of that one too, but about Arnold.
Yeah, he was a T1.
T-150 or something like that.
So what was it? I can't remember. I think it was a T-600 or something.
I mean,
pissed off fans.
But the T-1000.
I know this, and I just can't remember it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Don't. You know what? Never mind.
T-101.
Something like that. But yeah, the T-1000 definitely gave me nightmares because it could be anybody. But yeah, that's kind of where I go into sci-fi. Of course, I have like this long like library of cheesy sci-fi monster flicks from the 50s I can go into. I watched a lot of the old Flash Gordon serials, which I do. I actually I don't not anymore, but I used to have Flash Gordon on DVD when they released them. But yeah, that's kind of where I am on sci-fi, and of course there's like comic books and stuff like that. I'm not going to go too deep in that because we just did a comic book episode a few weeks ago.
Now, Flash Gordon is. I mean, I
watched. No one sung the theme song.
I watched one or two of the actual episodes, but for me, it's got to be the movie.
Buck Rogers is another one, but that's more TV.
I watched the entire Buck Rogers thing. I have the entire series. I love that. But with Flash Gordon, the movie that I watched, I love that primarily because my favorite band did the soundtrack to it. It's just so iconic.
Okay, so we'll get back to you, Don. Like, if you were going to think of like your favorite sci-fi movies or TV shows, what would they be?
Movies, pretty dry on. Mainly the fact that a lot of movies don't grab my attention.
Yeah.
I usually just drop out,
Okay, go.
and that they just tend to be like really long. So, you know, when it comes to movies, I just can't keep up with it. I just get bored of it. As for like shows, you know, like I said before, Star Trek, Next Generation, like right off the bat, it's like my go-to show.
You also watched a lot of anime and stuff like that, and there's dozens of anime that
Yeah.
are sci-fi.
I mean, you have Cowboy Bebop, you have Trigun,
Star.
yeah. You got a good handful, you know.
Macross, Gundam.
Evangelion counts too.
Yeah, just so much stuff that we can draw from.
I mean, a good majority of anime in itself is science fiction. The amount of actual
Even, like,
real
things
life
like-
anime is really limited.
Like if you think about it, like even shows like Dragon Ball Z is sci-fi,
Yep.
Yep.
which it's cool. I think I've mentioned before that I'm more of a fan of Dragon Ball with the adventure and stuff like that, but that's besides the point.
So that's why I say, I mean, the majority of anime is science fiction. You very rarely get an anime that is not, on some level, has a little bit of science fiction.
Yeah,
High school ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kind of like, like right now I'm watching Kenichi, The Strongest Disciple. That's not science fiction whatsoever. It's all martial arts.
if there's anime that takes place in high school, I'm like, no.
Well,
No,
it takes place in
fuck
high school.
this.
It takes place in high school.
Fuck this. I hate whenever anime takes place in high school.
I mean, even Yu-Gi-Oh! Is science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the holograms. I guess,
Well,
yeah.
too, and all the mystical magic, Shadow Realm, and all that
Well,
stuff.
that's more
Well,
fantasy.
fiction.
It's more fantasy. And then you have all the technology stuff that plays into it
I like
after
that. Besides the holograms, what really is there?
There's an immense amount of technology that comes out later on,
I've only
Well,
watched
that's a
like
virtual world,
season
didn't they?
one.
Yeah.
And then one time they did.
They did twice, two
Oh.
virtual
Oh, they
worlds.
did. Okay, that was a good one.
A few other things like TV shows I grew up with that was kind of sci-fi themed. But I already mentioned Power Rangers. Then you have Masked Rider, which I mentioned before that it's the bastardization of Kamen Rider. If anybody's curious about Masked Rider, don't watch it. Just watch Kamen Rider. You might have to deal with subtitles, but I think a lot of people who are probably listening to this can handle subtitles. But yeah, there was sci-fi elements to it, and Kamen Rider, for example, is science fiction. I became more of a fan of that recently. But then there was like other shows like VR Troopers, which I hope somebody remembers this show besides me and Aaron.
Actually, I mean, I watched the show and I liked it, but if you were actually going to nail it down, I would like for like 3 or 4 episodes. Because I had to take added episodes on it. Of course, you had shows like Beetleborgs, which I never watched. I just saw advertisements for it.
I watched Big Bad Beetleborgs. It's not very good, but even it has side. All their powers came from some ghost from a comic book. But the original Japanese show, yes, this is like Power Rangers and Masked Rider. They took stock footage of a Japanese show and try to make it a kid show. The show that has stuff about like cyborg relations and all these dark things like death and murder and stuff like that. Perfect show for kids.
To me, all those shows when they came out were just rip-offs of the Power Rangers, and I love Power Rangers. And so
they
I
were all
didn't really-
produced by Spawn.
Yeah, but as a kid, you don't think about that. You just think, oh, they're just ripping off my favorite show. I don't want to watch it. So,
But yeah, those were some of the shows I watched that were kind of sci-fi-ish. Then, like I said, anime. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. That's sci-fi-ish. But other shows, like I said before, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, so I never really watched Star Trek. Never watched Battlestar Galactica. Never watched Doctor Who. I take it you don't like Battlestar Galactica.
I suffered through having to watch like 10 episodes with my brother. I was like, dude, this is
I
boring.
watched one and it was like, no.
The old one or the new one, I don't care. They're boring as hell to me.
I didn't even know there was a new one.
Yes. Ugh.
But when I like with the Sci-Fi Channel, most of the stuff I watched from the Sci-Fi Channel was Mystery Science Theater, which was like an hour. No, I think it was 90 minutes. I think every episode was 90 minutes
That's
because
long.
they're watching the whole movie. Sometimes they edit it, but for the most part, it's like an hour and a half long. But here's the thing: they didn't. It's not I say it's a show and it has episodes and stuff like that, but honestly, they more positioned it like movies.
That's what it was.
Yeah, they positioned it like it was its own movie. You know, back before Sci-Fi decided to make their own movies, and oh dear Lord, I just watched Space Jaws recently. There's a sci-fi movie for you if anybody can find it. Wikipedia has abandoned this. IDMB has abandoned this. There is nothing on YouTube of this. You cannot find this on DVD for some reason. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel once. Space Jaws. A giant megalodon made out of asteroid or meteorite, whatever you want to say, taking down space stations, and it roars in space. You think the Jaws roaring at the end of Jaws 4 was ridiculous? It's Jaws in space. You thought Sharknado was bad? You think Sharktopus was bad? No. The end all be all is Space Jaws. And I'm sorry if I was spitting. It's just Space Jaws. The movie is completely ridiculous. Now you know how they used, like in, I don't know if it was Alien or not, but it was a James Cameron movie.
Mm-hmm.
Was it James Cameron did Alien? John? No. I'm thinking completely different.
Yeah.
Not Alien. I'm thinking of John Carpenter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of his movies he would use old McDonald's boxes, spray paint them gray and all that, make ship interiors with them. They did the same thing here, but you could tell they're freaking Burger King boxes because you could still see the logo.
It's advertising. You had to pay for it.
I mean, the acting is horrendous. There's a bit where, and of course, they couldn't afford to actually have a giant shark in space. They couldn't afford a puppet, nothing. So half the time, it's this horrible CG effect. But most of the time, you don't see it. You just see people reacting to it. There's this woman who's looking out the window as her friend had to go out in a pod to save somebody who's lost in space because they're trying to make this into gravity. Okay, I should be nice. Gravity came out way after this did. But they're trying to be... This guy's floating in space, which apparently when you're in space, it makes it look like you're being hung by wires. You can see the wires, by the way, clear as day.
I mean, I figure, it's already a poorly budget movie.
Yeah, this was made in 2012, though. When did Gravity come out? I'm just curious.
Like this year.
This year?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. This came out in 2012. This is, hands down, has to be the worst shark movie I've ever seen. And that says a lot. I've seen a lot of shitty shark
They
movies.
should have went to Kickstarter.
Anyway, the woman is looking out the window at her friend in the pod. Space Jaws shows up, and they literally call it Space Jaws in the movie. This movie gets so bad. Honestly, is it intentional? I can't tell.
I don't know how people can even function like that to be like, oh, this is perfectly fine as a movie. Fuck it.
Is this, the woman's like, she hears the shark, again, hears the shark,
Like,
and by the way, yes, it's the exact same roar from Jaws 4. The whatever, I can't do the noise, but it's the exact same roar on loop. It's the exact same roar every time. Not to mention stop screams. You don't hear the Wilhelm yell, but you hear
I'm
all
surprised.
the other ones. You hear all the other yells. All the other stop public domain yells.
Oh.
By the way, all the music, public domain. So it's the same shit you would hear on... I thought about Power Rangers when I thought about this, because Power Rangers had this nasty moment where they were using stop music. It's the exact same music. It's the same music you hear on Most Dangerous Chases on Spike TV or something like that.
Well, I mean, you talk about looping stuff for a second. I mean, you can loop stuff and it can still be cool. Power Rangers is a perfect example of that. Every single episode, we saw the same loops of the Zords coming out, but it never got old.
I guess I should
Yeah.
say they did reuse animations. They did reuse that animation of the shark in space swimming. Fucking space.
Shit costs money, yo. It's not cheap.
How does the shark move? That's my question. It just swims like a normal shark in space. And plus, oh, this is supposed to be a big secret. This thing is in freaking Earth's orbit. How do we not notice that? How does NASA not know about that?
It's a secret because if
They're
mankind, if
it's
people knew
killing
it,
satellites.
if people knew it, they would be in terror and they wouldn't be able to sleep at night because
This
they'd
thing
be
is so-
afraid it could come down and
This
eat
thing
them.
is so big, though. They show that you can see it from Earth. You can see the fucking shark from
It
Earth.
sounds so bad that it sounds like something from YouTube.
No,
honestly
no,
sounds
this
bad.
is
Yeah.
a legit movie.
I've
Yeah.
actually seen movies on YouTube that are independently done that are better than
I
silent
mean,
as this.
Yeah.
we're not. This is almost Birdemic bad, but it was made by an actual studio.
Okay, now talking about something like that, well, how do you justify Godzilla not being able to be seen? I mean,
How can I justify it?
Yeah.
Because whenever Godzilla's on screen, it's awesome.
no. I mean, like, how in the movie has he only appeared a couple of times where people have actually seen him? I mean, how does he stay hidden all the years?
Oh, good point. But
The plot hole you don't acknowledge.
yeah, well, I
Yo,
kind
Men
of
in-
stole.
Yo, Men in Black on people.
I kind of
Very good.
stole the segment. I apologize, but I just thought of that movie and it just like opened up this door. We were out of time for this segment, so we'll be right back. Again, I apologize. In the next segment, we'll go further into our favorite sci-fi and stuff like that.
Yes, and you just can be completely quiet.
So, yeah, I deserve that. All right, we'll be right back.